He's back.
Yeah, he's back, and I don't know whether to say he's back and better than ever, or he's back and oh my God, because we really don't know. This is Trump 2.0. Trump 1.5 wasn't that good. In fact, Trump 1.5 was scary. We don't know what he's going to be. We don't know what he's going to do. Even though we knew his behavior for 4 years as president and 4 years being out of office, we don't know if there's going to be humility. We don't know if there's going to be decency. We don't know if he's going to be unplugged and unhinged, or whether he will see this as a chance to repair his legacy and do some amazing things.
Because he has been president before, and the world didn't end.
It didn't end, but there were things that happened, namely 2 impeachments. That's a big deal. And we forget that not only are the impeachments, they're the indictments, they're the convictions, there is chaos wherever he goes. But there's also significant change. And the one thing that I realize is that the Americans genuinely hate the status quo. We are looking not backward, but forward. And this is the key to understanding what just happened. This is not asking for a return to the way things were. This is asking for a rejection of the way things are.
That's an excellent point. This was a very definitive, clear result. The map turned red. So do you think America will be more united going forward?
It depends on what the leadership does. It depends on whether... Look, the public said, essentially, in a word, enough. All caps, 2 exclamation points, and that's what Trump offered. And the fact is, there were a lot of Republicans elected to the Senate. Looks like they're going to keep the House. So this wasn't just a Trump victory. This was a victory to challenge the status quo. It threw out a Democratic president and a Democratic administration. They threw out a Democratic Senate. They kept the Republican House. There's going to be significant change. I just don't know how much the public will embrace that change.
So did the Trump camp nail the campaign, or did the Harris camp blow it?
It's a great question. And I believe it's more that the Harris campaign blew it. Donald Trump had the single worst debate performance that I can remember, certainly in my lifetime. Talking about eating dogs and cats, it's just insane. But in the end, Harris never told people what she was going to do in the first hour, the first day, the first week, the first month, and so on. And she never really explained why her positions were different now than they were 3 years ago or 5 years ago. And the truth is, she was never tested. Her campaign for president in 2019 blew up so quickly, and I think that she was just, the message didn't resonate. And the reason why this is so important is that the first 5 weeks of her effort were brilliant. I've never seen such joy. It was a celebration. Wherever she went, it was a political party. Not party as in Republicans and Democrats, but party as in dancing and everyone being happy. And she instilled excitement and energy. Yeah, you got it. And what happened after the debate? She got dark. She got negative. She came after him using the same kind of words that his critics would use. And then eventually she starts to call him a fascist. She became just like any other politician when she was hopeful and positive and focused on the future. It was amazing.
So whatever she was selling, Americans either didn't get it or didn't want it.
But there are 2 Harrises. There's the Harris before the debate that really captured the public's imagination, and the Harris after the debate that came across just like any other politician, and nobody can out-Trump Trump. No one can figure out the words and phrases and how to really demonize someone like Trump can. And she just didn't get it. And whoever advised her, I don't know if this was her, but the person who said to her, you need to remind people of Trump. Someone in her campaign created the phrase Trump amnesia to suggest that the American public had forgotten what things were like from 2017 to 2021. There is no Trump amnesia. There never was. Those people did not understand the American people. They were prepared to take Trump at his worst over Harris at her worst. And they just didn't get it.
You might have just answered this, but since Trump declared victory, I've had so many messages from friends and family back home in Australia saying, how could Americans choose Donald Trump to be their president?
It's because they didn't choose Harris, it's number one. It's because they were saying hell no to the status quo, second. And third is the hope that this time he'll take that energy, that intensity, and actually do what he promised to do 4 years ago.
He does have a clear domestic mandate to carry out now. Fix the economy, close your borders, stop crime. Are you confident he'll do those things?
I'm confident that he's going to try to do those things, but I'm not confident that he has the discipline and the focus to stay on message, to stay on point. One of the issues of the first 4 years of the Trump presidency was that he was all over the place. He brought confusion and chaos to everything that he focused on. Now, he could take the bright lights, focus on the issue, and get the public to talk about it. But you need to stay with it. You can't get sidetracked from some other shiny light. And he reminded me of the person who focused on everything, and therefore he focused on nothing. The most important advice Donald Trump could have from an outsider: set your priorities and stick with it.
Just quickly back on Harris. So much was made of the abortion issue, the female vote. But in the end, women didn't turn out for Kamala Harris. Why?
In the end, women did turn out for Kamala Harris, but not to the degree that she thought. And what happened was she alienated men. And I was very surprised about this. I was doing focus groups every single week, often 2 in a week's time. And we started to talk to men who were Democrats. These men voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016, so it's not an anti-female vote. And they voted for Joe Biden in 2020, so it's not an anti-Democrat vote. But they voted for Trump over Harris because they thought she didn't like them. They thought they were being ignored, forgotten, and even dismissed, and it made them angry. They haven't permanently realigned. This is not a vote that will vote Republican in the future, and they may not. It was the perfect moment to be able to say to the Democratic nominee and to America, we have a voice. And just because we're male, just because we have benefited from the hierarchy, doesn't mean you can push us down. And it was a vote of resentment. It was a vote of, listen to me.
And younger men felt the same, I think, too. Demonised. Can I be masculine? Am I allowed to be a man?
I agree with that. And I agree with that strongly. But for younger men, it was I'm here. He speaks up, I speak up. He's being demonized, I'm being demonized. He's a victim, I'm a victim. And damn it, I'm not going to be quiet any longer. For older men, it was, why are you cutting me out? Why are you forgetting that I exist? You surround yourself with women. Look at the Harris ads. They're women's oriented topics, surrounded by young women. It not exclusively, but look at the advertisements and you see who she's trying to appeal to. Shaking the hands of young women, being embraced by them, and good for her. But don't forget the men. And she forgot the men. They just weren't there.
And we've heard this a lot in the last couple of days, and excuse the language, but is there an element of this is a f*** you vote?
Normally I'm the one who uses language like this. For the record, I did not use the F word.
You're allowed to.
In Australia, you're allowed to. In America, I've been screamed at for doing this. This is how much I've changed. I'm not going to do it. But it is an FU to those in charge over the last 4 years that promised to unite the country and didn't, promised to hear the voices of the unheard and didn't, promised to make a meaningful, measurable difference in the quality of life of everyone and didn't. And finally, they just said, F you. And she should have known this. And the fascinating aspect of this campaign is that it's twofold. What she did before the debate and who she was after the debate. I never really thought of it until right now. The before the debate, Harris would have won if she had stayed that way. I don't believe Donald Trump's election was predetermined. I don't believe that he was going to win. In fact, I'd argue that he was the worst candidate the Republicans could put forward because of all the negativity that surrounded him. Yeah. So you got the desire for change. That's the easy part. Joe Biden was not supported, his numbers are quite bad for an incumbent president. But that does not mean they would still vote for you. But what Trump did is that he offered a complete break with the past. He offered to give the voice to those who wanted to shout, I'm here, look at me. And we're used to thinking that that's the African-American vote. We're used to thinking that's the Latino vote. In 2024, that's the white male vote. And she did horribly among them, and she even lost a lot of lifelong Democrats because they felt ignored, forgotten, or even betrayed.
Something that seems to have been forgotten somehow along this campaign is that Donald Trump is still facing sentencing and serious charges relating to election interference in 2020. Do you see any of those cases proceeding now?
I can't imagine in this country prosecuting someone who's the President of the United States, and surely the Supreme Court felt the same way when giving the President limited but significant immunity as long as he's President. I want you to consider this. Indicted 91 times, convicted more than 30 times, impeached twice, accused of sexual assault, accused of lying to the American people. We've never had this from a losing candidate, and we just had someone with all of this baggage elected President of the United States. Boy, my country has changed. I don't recognize it now.
How does that make you feel? I mean, how are you really feeling?
Well, this won't help you. And I could have put your country on here, but I was preparing to go to this country to move if we did exactly what we did several days ago, if we put Trump back in office, because I just thought, I don't want the yelling anymore. I want cooperation. I want people working together side by side. I want lower taxes. I want less spending. I want more freedom and opportunity. I want everyone represented, but in the end, our politics have become so brutal and so negative. But it's over. And I'm one of those millions of people who have hope that just maybe he's learned, and just maybe we'll fight and we'll disagree. But hopefully we can at least work together enough to move the country forward. I don't feel the need to run away anymore.
So you're not moving to Britain?
I'm not moving to Britain. In fact, I'm going to stay and potentially participate in what goes on here because I am able to talk to Republicans and Democrats. I do now have the ability on Capitol Hill and elsewhere to be able to explain how Americans think and feel. I'm hoping that there are people who want to learn that and want to represent that and make a difference.
On that, how important is the team that he appoints now? Because his former advisors and generals have called him a fascist. Traditional Republicans have deserted and dismissed him. I mean, who is left to help him make the big decisions?
We're a big country. We have a ton of experts. We're loaded with talent. I just hope that he pursues the most talented people that don't necessarily agree with him. The issue is not diversity in terms of how you look, but diversity in terms of how you think. So we get the best and brightest and most capable leaders to come in and take these challenges. And he should understand this. He was the vote of the people who had enough. He won because the American people said, I don't want this anymore. I will take you, Mr. Trump, and all that baggage because I believe you're most likely to bring about the change that this country needs. That's what he needs to focus on, not to let down that 51%. Donald Trump got a majority. It's not that he just even won a plurality. He got a majority of the vote. And Republicans are winning in Senate seats that they did not control in the past. This is a very big deal. This is a sea change. The question now is, will he change with it? Will he bring people who support his agenda, but willing to listen to other points of view?
Because historically, he ignores people who disagree with him or punishes them.
Historically, it's very hard to stand up to him. No matter what he says, I like a good argument. No, he doesn't. But just maybe the assassination attempts and the election, that's what people are hoping for now, that something will filter in and that he'll be focused on the history books and not just focused on the histrionics.
So big picture, on the world stage, Donald Trump has promised to end all wars. Do you have any intel from the Trump camp on what that actually looks like?
I have a fair number of relationships in the State Department arena, in national security, and they tell me that they're confident that the U.S. will not leave NATO, that they're confident that the U.S. will still be involved in world affairs, and that they have confidence that because of their own personal relationships, they can have the conversations so that the West still understands and engages in the kind of policy that keeps not just the U.S., but the Western world safe and secure and prosperous.
That's encouraging.
But that's part of why I don't feel the need to run away. And it would be running away. It would be.
The world's a very different place to the last time Donald Trump was president. I mean, it's a much more challenging landscape for him to navigate and negotiate diplomatically.
Well, Donald Trump has never been a diplomat. And the challenge for him is that he thinks that all of his interactions are a success. He thinks that everyone he sits down with, he gets the upper hand. It isn't that way. My job is public opinion. And it's to measure the hopes and fears of the American people and the reactions that they have to elected officials and the people who govern them. Right now, fewer Americans trust the institutions that govern them than ever before. Fewer Americans trust the people who run those institutions. And it's in that environment that Donald Trump got brought back into office. We are a horribly polarized, a horribly divided country. So it's going to be very hard for him to bring people back who either don't like him or don't trust him. But we got a chance to start over every 4 years, and this is going to be probably the most significant 4 years in my lifetime. What do we do vis-a-vis Russia, China, and Iran? The public says limit your engagement, but whatever you do, do it successfully. This is going to be hard economically as prices have exploded and the level of insecurity about the future has risen. The public says, down with the past, get rid of it. Focus on the future, but do so in a united way. Do so where everyone is rowing in the same direction. And there's a challenge to our culture. We are wondering, tens of millions of Americans are wondering, where are we going as a people, as families and communities? And the public is saying, get your act together, see each other, but celebrate American values. Celebrate the American way of life, which may sound weird to an Australian audience, but in America, it's perfectly natural. All the public is saying is, be respectful, be civil, and most importantly, tell the truth.
Does Donald Trump do any of those things, though?
He can. It's up to him.
You think he can?
I think he can. I don't know if he will. It's part of my frustration. But I know what America needs. Having polled 50,000 of them this year, having focus grouped, 100 times, I've heard more hopes and dreams and fears and anger then I want to hear it for the rest of my life. This year I had the public yelling, the cacophony of voices and the intensity, the passion. And nowhere is this more obvious than immigration, because nowhere are Americans more afraid of failed policies than they are about the lack of security at the border, the lack of a clearly defined plan about where you go and what you do, a loss of personal safety and security, and the desire to do it completely differently. Make no mistake, Americans do support immigration, but they support it the right way, the legal way. They do want families brought together, but not at the expense of the economy or a sense of safety. There is a common sense approach that can be taken that reflects the values of this country and does abide by a commitment to a solution. So you stop talking about it and you get it done. The Biden administration never understood that.
And they didn't deliver it.
No, because they undid all of Trump's policies, and that was the one area, more than anything else, that they gave the Trump administration credit for what they did, and they damned the Biden administration for what they didn't do. And in the end, if there's one issue that made a difference in this campaign, it was immigration. Trump, they saw as a success, and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, they saw as a failure.
Just on some of the rhetoric and inflammatory concerns and criticisms that are coming from around the world, from Europe and Australia, could Donald Trump reshape world order?
I'm one of tens of millions of Americans who don't like the tone of public discourse. I'm a teacher, I'm a professor, and I know that it's not constructive. It's not constructive to leadership. It's not constructive to problem solving. And I'm hoping that when we go forward, we will have an approach that is focused on results and success rather than owning the opposition. I'm not confident that that's going to happen. And I am concerned about the language that comes out of America and how it's heard and received and how it's acted upon by the rest of the world. I do know the last 4 years were a failure. I know that America has to do it differently. But I also know that the previous 4 years before that was not a success either. There has to be some sort of common ground.
What do you say to people who say with Donald Trump running the country, we could have World War III? I mean, as you know, World War II didn't start when Hitler invaded Poland. It started a decade earlier.
And World War I was a little local conflict that just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
So is that where we're headed?
I note that the last 4 years wasn't a good example of where we could be. Russia going into a sovereign country, taking over more and more bits and doing so much damage. Iran funding a level of terror that we haven't seen in this country since 9/11. And China declaring that Taiwan is its sphere of influence and that will be solved or resolved, which is a clear threat to the U.S. So we're not doing so well right now, and that's part of the public saying, enough of that. We don't want to be sending American troops. We don't want to be intervening. But we also don't look away and pretend as though this is a safe and secure world. Why are we not helping Ukraine actually win? We're giving them just enough to keep the war going. A failure of the Biden administration. Why is it that we don't simply do a full-throated endorsement of Israel, which I know some of your viewers will disagree with, and just say to them, it's your safety, it's your security, it's your country. Once again, Biden's not making a clear distinction. And Harris just blurred it all. So there's a lack of clarity. I say this because it's unclear what we're going to do. Yeah. But 3 key points here. Americans endorse NATO and the mission that NATO has.
But will Trump?
We have to wait and see. Second, Americans do not want to send our young men and women into battle to get killed for these countries, but they will still send help, they will send guidance, they will send the tools of success. And third, in the end, the goal is peace. And whatever gets us there, and we do not have peace right now. We do not have success right now. And the public said, enough with this. I want to try something different.
You mentioned China and Taiwan. I mean, we're very worried in Australia about China's dominance. If Trump is to essentially hand Putin a victory, negotiate a peace deal that is in Vladimir Putin's favour to end the war, I mean, that doesn't send a good message to other dictators.
That's too policy-oriented. I'm a pollster.
Okay, fair enough. You know what I'm saying, though? Those are the concerns that... I guess we just don't know. We don't know what his plan is because he actually hasn't gone into a lot of detail.
No, but he never had. And the issue is, there was a point when the administration considered bombing Iran, and they chose not to do it. But it could have happened. They were very close to doing it. This was an administration that made a very clear statement that it will support Israel in its effort to defeat terrorism and its goal to be safe and secure. I don't know how to answer it because I'm not sure. Once again, are we going back to the Trump of 2017 to 2021? Or is he a different man with a different objective and different priorities? We don't know now.
And I guess that's the anxiety, isn't it, around the world? It's the uncertainty.
Well, we do know this. The American people was given a clear alternative in Kamala Harris. On every issue and every approach, she took a contrarian point of view to the Trump administration, and the public said no. So at least we have that clarity.
I've seen a lot of people over the past few days attacking the American people. Not the Harris campaign.
I understand
Not
that.
Donald Trump saying
And it bothers me.
Americans have made a stupid choice.
Yes, and they don't have the right to say that because Americans have found the last 4 years to be horrific. I'm lucky. I don't live paycheck to paycheck. Those who do had to wonder, could we host Thanksgiving this year, or is the food too expensive to put on the table? Could we travel to our parents this year or our children this year, or were gas prices too expensive? Can we live where we want to live, or that house is simply beyond our reach? This American public lost its faith in the future, and we're angry about conditions right now. And the Biden administration, Biden-Harris, did nothing to speak to them. So I understand the world is critical, but the world doesn't realize that America was struggling, has been struggling now for 4 years. We emerged from COVID, and I acknowledge the economy is good, but the public doesn't feel it. I acknowledge that so many of these numbers have turned around, such as inflation. But when you can't own the things you want to own and do the things you want to do, I would suggest to the world that they pay more attention to what Americans think than to what the world thinks. Because in the end, if they want the U.S. to make the contributions to the world community, to be engaged in world events, they would be best not to criticize or condemn the U.S., because then we really will turn inward, and that's not good for anyone.
It's not. Last time we spoke, you were really worried about the potential for a Trump presidency. You called that a shit show. You know, there were all sorts of uncertainty, but you were pretty fired up.
And I'm not now. You know why?
What's the change?
The change is we don't have these accusations of electoral fraud. We don't have people having taken to the streets, which is what everyone was afraid of. We're not having riots. The public is actually accepting. They may not endorse it, but they accept it, and they believe it. And it instills a level of predictability, stability, and certainty, which did not exist when we talked a couple months ago. And I think that has an impact on public perceptions. I know it's had an impact on me. I actually think our electoral system survives. I think our democracy survives. And I think that we just might be able to work together, maybe, to bring about the change that the public clearly voted for.
So through the concern, through the uncertainty about Trump, and he has been unhinged and brutal on this campaign, you think there's hope?
I certainly did not when we talked. And it got even worse. The things that he said, the things that he did. I suggested publicly that he ought to go away for 2 weeks. Just send him to the Cayman Islands. Do whatever you're going to do. Just don't talk to the press. Because the stuff that Trump was saying, the stuff he was doing,
He unravelled at the end of the campaign.
And yet the public still said, I'd rather have Trump unraveled and unplugged than Harris focused and determined. Because in the end, she didn't understand. She couldn't feel America. She felt her America. And that Trump ended up being a better voice for more people. That anger that he articulates, that he shows, is an anger inside tens of millions of Americans. And they thought that he was better for them, better for the country. And they'd say to you, in my focus groups, again and again, I don't like him, but I don't have to like my president. I don't like what he says. I don't like what he does.
I don't like the way he treats women.
No, I don't like any of that. But I still think that he's a better president for affordability and security. And in the end, those were the issues. Not health care, which he talked about at the end. Not abortion, which I had so many people when they would see my appearances on television. They would yell at me, you don't understand women. You have no right to speak about this. I have fathers and brothers and sons. And this is an issue for all men. This is an issue for everyone. And they would point at me and yell at me to silence me, literally, after they would see me on TV. They didn't get it. They were wrong. If you can't put food on the table and you're afraid to go out, that trumps, sorry for the language, but that trumps everything. And they didn't understand that because it wasn't their issue. And when you're a single issue voter, you cut everything out. And Harris became a single issue candidate. I'm not Donald Trump. And that did not elect her because in the end, they wanted something more than that. And she didn't hear it, and she didn't see it, and so she didn't get it.
Whatever you think of Donald Trump, it is an extraordinary political comeback.
These are extraordinary times. And so you're going to have situations that you could not have predicted and that our only goal is to understand them. The return of Donald Trump was impossible on January 7th, 2021. It was impossible.
He was gone. He was politically dead.
Done and probably heading to jail. And now he's president of the United States. Go figure. But you know what? In democracies, lots of stuff happen that's unpredictable. And that's what's so great about a democracy. And what's great about life, at least in America, is that there really are second acts or third acts. You really do have the chance to rise again. When the public says, I've had enough, listen to them. When they say, I want a change, pay attention. And if they're mad as hell, don't reject it, don't insult it, but embrace it. Because in the end, Donald Trump read America better than most of us. And he understood exactly what the country was looking for. And that's why the impossible became reality.
Hello, I'm Amelia Adams. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minute segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.